Welcome back. The title is correct. This is not clickbait. I sold my crypto. Now, we're going to be talking about what was sold, why it was sold, where we are in the cycle, and all of the signals that are there. Because I have been getting more and more signals as we've been doing these videos, as we've been exploring the market, as we've been following the psychological chart of the market cycle. We've been following the Bitcoin halving tracker to understand where we are in the cycle. And we've also been following the sentiment of the entire market, mostly from retail, which seemed to be disconnected from what the market is actually doing and actually where the market is. But in today's video, we're going to be exploring why I sold my crypto, why I did it, when I did it, and what we're going to be the future plans. Because the point of investing is not just to buy and sell and then move on. It's to consistently reinvest, similar to owning a business, where you reinvest your profits into the business to help it grow. Otherwise, the business is not going to grow. Same thing with your portfolio. So let's get into it. Let's talk about where we are in the cycle, why I sold, should you sell, and much, much more. This is the Cryptoviser podcast. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. That way you never miss a new video. We upload every single day of the year since 2018 to bring you the latest happening in the financial world. Thumbs up are absolutely free. Crypto is not free, and losing in crypto, if you're not able to identify when the market is peaking, well, that's going to cost you a lot more than free. So give the video a thumbs up and let's get right into this video, why I sold my crypto and when I sold my crypto. Let's get into it. Now, if you're new to this channel, this should not be a surprise to anybody who watches my videos on a regular basis. I mean, I posted this video 1 month ago in June that said, bulls are selling, you keep buying. And this was a 48-minute video about what the whales are doing, right? And even the bulls, the market bulls are selling their crypto. And by the way, that was 2 months ago. This was in May, right? 1 month after the yearly bottom for most altcoins, I posted the crypto top. I'm selling soon. Now, again, this was about 3-4 months ago from when I'm recording this video now in May of 2025. And people are now saying, Cryptoviser, why are you selling? We haven't seen any indicators. We don't see the market topping out. What's going on? I'm like, well, did you miss the last 5 months of this channel? Because if you go to my channel and you just click on videos and just type the little search bar and type in top, market top, crypto cycle top, or just type in top, you will see I have been posting videos about this for months. And by the way, very similar to 2022. In 2022, I was warning about all of this, all the companies collapsing. 3 Arrows Capital, Terra Luna, BlockFi, all of these major companies were collapsing. And who was at the center of all of the collapses? It was FTX. And meanwhile, nobody from the, I would say May, June timeframe until the FTX collapse in November, it seemed like nobody in the market was able to see it. I mean, I was posting video after video. These were poor performing videos. And meanwhile, we were correct, literally to the day. I didn't know FTX was going to collapse the way that it did, or it would be the catalyst for the collapse of the market. But we knew the time frame, and we knew that FTX was involved in all the borrowing and lending. But for some reason, retail, many of you, and many people who don't watch my videos but watch the other large YouTubers, they were not able to see what was going on. And so let's kind of break down just in the most simplest terms, right? This just came out the other day in the beginning of August saying Solana begins shipping their Seeker mobile devices in over 50 countries. And I started to think, wait, hold on, Solana has another mobile phone? This is giving me flashbacks to the previous cycle where Solana, which again was headed up by FTX and pumped buy-in for the billionaires, exactly as I laid out to my viewers. I've never held Solana, never bought it, because when I'm buying Solana, or when you're buying Solana, you're buying it directly from the billionaires. Now it's probably a little bit more spread out, the concentration of the wealth. But back when Solana first came out, we did not want to go near it. Now, that's not saying it didn't perform. The crypto definitely performed, but that doesn't mean it was a safe investment, right? So they're releasing a new phone, and then I thought back, okay, what happened? When did they release their first phone? Well, Solana Mobile debuts Saga flagship Android phone for Web3, and this was in June of 2022. Well, If you guys, again, have been on my channel for any length of time, what happened in June of 2022? That was the macro bottom for crypto. That was the macro bottom. I remember at the beginning of 2022, I started to sell my crypto because I identified that we topped out in 2021, and by 2022, the beginning of 2022, you can see that the market was in free fall. This is specifically the Solana chart. And meanwhile, when I posted that video that I'm selling my crypto, what did I get? Downvoting people. Cryptoviser, you're an idiot. We're not even at the top. We're having an extended cycle. The same shit that they said in the previous cycle, they're starting to say again. We've heard extended cycle from Raoul Pal and many other people in the ecosystem saying that this bull market is going to extend into 2026. Now, maybe it will. I don't know. But again, Solana launched their first phone in June of 2022. This is June of 2022 where I am on the chart right now. Solana price was $30. And really, that was the macro bottom. I mean, we went a little bit lower than that, but a lot of that was because of the FTX collapse and the connection between FTX and Solana. That's my opinion on it. But either way, I mean, June was the macro bottom for crypto. So think about that. Solana launched a phone at the bottom of the market last cycle. If we look at the chart for the 1 year, we're pretty down from the cycle highs, right? Double top last year, $260, $260. That's a double top. And so maybe we're hitting towards the bottom. And obviously, when we are at the bottom, that is the most bullish time to buy, right? But we don't know when we're at the bottom until afterwards. But this is just one example of one thing that is giving me, similarities to the previous cycle. And so this is one example. And by the way, Colin Talks Crypto on X posted this and said, it's funny how many people said Solana was a better investment than Ethereum over the past few months, when the truth was exactly the opposite. I find the timing of their wrongness fascinating. Market psychology is at work, making the most number of people wrong. And that's totally true, guys, because at the end of the day, in my view, the more people that are bullish, the more bearish I need to get. And the more bearish people are, the more bullish I need to get. You need to be opposite the market. Because when the market is euphoric, which I believe that we are in the euphoria phase, I mean, just go on your favorite YouTubers' comment section, stuff like that. Like, people are in like, oh no, Cryptoviser, there's no way we haven't even reached euphoria yet. It's like, no, we did. It just didn't happen in the timeline that you thought it was going to happen. And it may not have happened to the upside that you thought we were going to see. But that doesn't mean that we didn't get euphoria. We definitely did. I mean, Solana went from $8 to $260. And there's people who are like, no, the bull market hasn't even started, Cryptoviser. What are you talking about? It's like, you do you, but me, I'm selling. And so why am I selling my crypto? Well, by the way, I already sold a lot of the crypto. I'm still holding crypto and I still have positions in crypto. We're not going to specifically talk about what positions I'm in or out of, but let's just say this. If you've been following my videos for the last few months, you should pretty much have a very good idea of what I'm bearish about and what I am bullish about. And again, it doesn't matter what I'm doing in my portfolio. The whole point of this channel, the whole point of why I created this channel was to help viewers, the audience, come along the journey that I'm taking with investing, understanding the markets, understanding how the markets work, how the cycles work, how the psychology of retail works. That way I can position myself appropriately. And so it doesn't matter what I'm selling or what I'm buying. Generally speaking, you could look at the charts and say, whoa, we've come down pretty substantially. And the trend is your friend. So if we look at the year, okay, this doesn't mean Solana is not going higher. There's very good potential that every one of these cryptos can go higher. But the biggest things I've been called out in the comments have been, well, Cryptoviser, one day you're bearish, the next day you're bullish. And it's like, well, no, the thumbnail may be bearish or the thumbnail may be bullish, but my general thesis has not changed. And this just shows you guys, go look at the comment section. Some of these people we just block because they do nothing for this channel, right? But there are still commenters that are like, well, one day you're bullish, one day you're bearish. What is a Cryptoviser? One day you're selling, one day you're buying. It's like, no, like my thesis has been exactly the same for the last few months, and we have become more and more bearish on the market because you guys have to understand the bull run can last for months, years, weeks. The bear market, same thing. But this rotation phase, which I believe that we're in, as you're rotating into a bear market or rotating into a bull market, you can see massive volatility swings. But if you're counting on these massive volatility swings to then go sell your crypto and say, well, I sold at the pico top of the market, a lot of times that's not possible because the same way that you're trying to sell at whatever price it is, there's going to be a lot of other people selling. And we have been seeing a lot of selling over the past few months as we've covered extensively. But again, the Bitcoin bulls, they're like, no, some whale sold 80,000 Bitcoin. Who cares? Michael Saylor bought 20,000 of those Bitcoin the following week. It's like, yeah, but what happened to the other 60,000? And that's just one whale with one wallet and one sale that we know of. How many other sales are going on? Clearly a lot. This is why the price has not gone to 200, 300, 400, 500,000, because there is still a lot of liquidity. And by the way, I'm not the only one saying this. We've covered Axel Bitblaze on X, 127,000 followers. He says July was euphoric. And by the way, the people who think that we haven't even started the bull run, you probably need to follow Axel Blaze because he said he's a low IQ idiot. And those people who are like, well, Cryptoviser, the bull market has not even started yet. I would consider that pretty low IQ at this point because, I mean, literally Bitcoin is at all-time record highs, and these low IQ idiots, which I think are bots, but maybe they are not bots. Maybe they're just like NPC type bots where they just repeat, oh, well, Michael Saylor said we're not going to have a bear market, so we're not going to have a bear market, Cryptoviser. You got to listen to Michael Saylor. It's like, no. When there's one person that you're determining your whole investment thesis off of, that's not an investment I want to be in. Anyway, so this low IQ idiot, according to him, Axel Bitblaze said, Bitcoin hits all-time highs in July. Ethereum bounced over 60%, and many altcoins pulled 3 to 5x. Correct. A lot of people are missing this. This could be, I have said over and over on this channel, the law of diminishing returns. You can see it on the Bitcoin halving chart here. This is days since the halving. And you can see this is this cycle, previous cycle, cycle before that, cycle before that. And what you can see is on the scaled up version of this chart, this is the perfect example of how this all operates. Every single cycle we've had diminishing returns, meaning the percentage gain is less than the previous cycles. And that's going to continue to happen. The more participants there are in the market, the more Wall Street's involved in the market, the more you're going to see diminishing returns. And so chasing those 10x, 100x returns this cycle, I think is a huge error by a lot of people. And, the people who are chasing those 100x returns and getting them maybe in like PP coin or any of these other meme coins, it's risky because they just keep reinvesting instead of securing their profits on the side and just moving on from the meme coins. They keep redoubling down on the meme coin ecosystem, which does pump the ecosystem up, but then they just keep reinvesting. And then at some point, we are going to hit a bear market. We are going to rotate, but they're going to be in so much euphoria because, oh, well, I'm a genius. Every single trade I've made, I made 10x on it. So I'm going to keep doing this, even if the market is downtrending. But they don't see that because all they see is their wins. Part of a downtrending market is you are going to have wins. That's called a bull trap. Traps you in to get you to believe that the bull market is not over. But bull markets do not last forever. And how do we know this? Well, all of the data. Recently, we just reported that Arthur Hayes sold his crypto, at least some of it, in one wallet that is being tracked by, I think, Look On Chain and Arkham Intelligence. And he responded and said, why did he sell? He said, U.S. tariffs are coming due in third quarter, which we are in. At least the market believes that after the non-farms payroll print, the payroll number, no major economy is creating enough credit fast enough to boost the nominal GDP. So Bitcoin will test 100,000, Ethereum will test 3,000. Come see my keynote at the end of August, back to the beach. And so essentially what Arthur Hayes is saying here is that we may not be going to a bear market. I don't really like bull market, bear market, because it's very hard to determine these until afterwards. But I would just say uptrending or downtrending market. Right now, the market is downtrending, and it has not affected every single asset in crypto yet. Until it does, until we actually see the fear and greed index really starting to peak to the greed side, we potentially have much higher to go. But you don't want to be ready to sell in the euphoria because everybody else is going to try to sell in the euphoria. And by the way, one green candle can put us to $300,000, but maybe they only filled zero point 0.1 Bitcoin on that $300,000 price. So on the charts, it will look like, oh, well, we hit $300,000. That was the top of the market. But it only filled 0.1 Bitcoin, and then the price came back down. That is also a possibility. So we have Axel Bitblaze saying July was euphoric. Arthur Hayes selling his crypto saying it was euphoric. But on the other side, we have the Bitcoin maximalists like Samson Mao saying that FOMO hasn't even started. And by the way, Samson Mao, he has been saying that's not Samson Mao, this is the host, but Samson Mao, he has been saying for literally 2 years now, wait for the Omega candle, wait for the Omega candle. And the Omega candle is in regards to a $10,000 candle on the Bitcoin chart to the upside or to the downside. So far, we have not seen the Omega candle. And I don't know that we are going to see it this cycle because technically we've already hit the Omega candle. We've already gone up $10,000 in price, right? Right here, we went up 10,000. Right here, we went up 10,000, but this is maybe not on the day. This is in the week. But Samson Mao is still bullish. Let's listen to what he is saying about where the market is and where the market is going. And don't forget to give this video an absolutely free thumbs up. And you can also let me know your thoughts about where we are in the cycle down below, but we got a lot more to cover, so let's get into it.
On one hand, there's the Bitcoin crowd who thinks Bitcoin is going a lot higher from here.
You see the price of Bitcoin heading?
Higher. Higher.
How much higher?
A lot higher.
People like Samson Mao are saying the FOMO hasn't even started yet.
I would say retail is still sleeping on this. And anecdotally, most people I know have said, their friends and family are not reaching out to them yet to ask about Bitcoin. So we're not even close to peak retail awareness or retail mania.
And
we're going to stop right there. Now, what Samson is saying does have a lot of credibility because I've talked about this before. The minute that you get that call or text message or DM from somebody that you know, that knows what you do with the investing stuff, but has never talked to you about it. The minute they text or call or DM you and ask you what to buy, when to buy, how to buy, where to buy, all this kind of stuff, that is the top indicator. And by the way, as I've explained, I don't necessarily think that these top indicators are only going to be showing in the crypto prices because as we've seen with these treasury strategy companies like MicroStrategy, they are, this is really where a lot of retail money is going. These are kind of leveraged plays on Bitcoin because their MNAVs or their net asset value, how much Bitcoin they hold versus their market caps are usually in a premium. But as I've explained, this premium will compress at some point. It has not just yet. And that's because I believe that that's where retail is. If we look at the previous cycle in 2022, 2021, a lot of pension funds and hedge funds, they were not investing in Bitcoin. They were investing in MicroStrategy. They were investing in FTX. They were not investing where the money was to be made. And the money was to be made in crypto in 2020 and 2021. And so we're in a new cycle, and where are we seeing all of the movement of the money? We're seeing the movement of the money in these Bitcoin thesis companies and the Ethereum thesis companies. And so that is where the retail is. They're already there. And by the way, I got the text. I got the call. That call that we're talking about from people who are not investors or not interested in crypto, the minute they call, during this time frame where we're close to the top of the market or at the top of the market, that's an indicator. It works every single time. This is why a lot of people tell their friends and family, oh, I'm in investing. If you ever have any questions about investing, let me know. Because once the sentiment in retail, right, people are seeing their friends, they're seeing the news talking about the all-time record highs, which we're seeing in the stock market. We're seeing in crypto. Everything's at all-time record highs right now. This is the time that they start calling at the end of the cycle. They never call at the beginning of the cycle. They're never interested in the middle of the cycle. They're interested in peak euphoria. And the other day, I got the call. And when I got the call, I was kind of in shock myself because I was like, this is in line with my thesis. And I sold. And listen, we can go much higher from here, but the risk reward is not there. Somebody even posted in the comments, they said, Cryptoviser, I agree with what you're saying, because even if you believe Bitcoin is going to go to $250,000, is it worth the risk for a 100% increase or 2x, right? Probably not. If I really believe that we were going to go to $1 million, it's probably worth holding versus selling. But if we're just going to 250,000 or 190,000 or 150,000, it's not worth the risk, because if you think it's going to 150,000, think about how many other people are thinking it's going to 150,000. And then all the traders and speculators that are going to pull the rug before we actually hit the number that you think that we're going to hit. Same thing goes for Ethereum. You know, people are talking about $7,000 Ethereum, $10,000 Ethereum. Well, that is possible. And I even said the same thing. What is the likelihood that we go down to 2,500, right, which is a 50% drop before we go to 7,000? And if we take a 50% drop, we have to do a 100% increase just to get back to this level. And so a 50% drop from here is $1,800. That's not even the cycle low, by the way. And so it is possible that that is going to occur. There's a lot of euphoria right now with the Ethereum strategy companies. But is this just euphoric and euphoria? Well, we also have to take into account some other things that are going on, right? Matt Hoogan, who is the chief investment officer at Bitwise, one of the crypto ETF issuers, said, I wrote my chief investment officer memo this week on the SEC chairman Paul Atkins' Project Crypto, a new initiative by the SEC. He said, there's a lot to say, but one thing is this, it's not priced in. And so I would agree that the big scale picture of crypto and Bitcoin specifically, with Project Crypto and with the SEC and all of the regulatory clarity we're getting, this is very bullish. But this takes time. And for all of this stuff to be integrated and then to start seeing the effects of the integration in the banking system, in the transaction usage, in the address, the wallet addresses increasing, in on-chain activity increasing, this is going to take time, and it potentially could take a year. I mean, if you think about pandemic, when they shut down the global economy, they passed the $4 trillion and then they started printing it pretty much in the middle of 2020. We did not start seeing that money flowing into the rest of the economy for about a year, because by the middle of 2021, that's when people started spending. We started to see a lot of supply-demand imbalances and prices going up. And so that was a 1-year lag. And then from that occurring to actually getting the inflation numbers took another 1 year. It doesn't mean the inflation wasn't occurring. It just means we got the results 1 year later. And so there, on these really macro, big picture type things, there's a lag effect. And this goes in line with my thesis that we are going to take a dip into 2026. A lot of things are lining up for 2026 to be the bottom and then really a reversal, right? Because Project Crypto can go into place. New Federal Reserve chairman in 2026 will be in place. This can be very, very bullish for crypto and the general economy. And by the way, again, it's not just me saying this. Galaxy's digital CEO, Mike Novogratz, said that Bitcoin holding firms may have peaked. And do you know why I'm listening to what he's saying? Because again, remember, he got a tattoo of Terra Luna. He was, loved FTX and Sam and all these things. Wrong about all of it, right? So I'm not saying that he's right about everything, but I want you guys to focus on, he is now, Galaxy Digital is a publicly traded company. He's the CEO. And they know what is going on in the markets because they can see it. They're the ones who facilitated the 80,000 Bitcoin sale. And so, speaking on the earnings call, Novogratz said the proliferation of crypto treasury companies has likely peaked. He said, we've probably gone through peak treasury company issuance. The question is now, is which of these existing companies will become monsters? And that's true, right? Ethereum is just starting to pick up. And, Bitcoin, it's kind of already there. But then we have to really understand what's going on in the Bitcoin treasury space, because as I've explained, this is the risk factor for the cycle. And you could be so bullish on Bitcoin and on Project Crypto and the macro scale of what's happening with Bitcoin, but there's a lot of companies, including Bitcoin maximalists like Anthony Pompliano, who has companies that are buying Bitcoin at literal all-time record highs. Maybe it's not going to be the high forever, but right now it's the all-time record high, $110,000 to $125,000. And so they're buying within this range with debt at the top of the market. Nobody seems to be concerned about a reversal in the price. Like, what happens if the price goes down to 60,000? What happens to that company? What happens to Anthony Pompliano's company? What happens to all the debt with the shareholders, shareholder, the share price of the stock? What happens to all of that in a down market? The fact that nobody seems to be talking about this or worried about this or concerned about this, and they just keep, flooding social media with, buy Strife, all these debt facilities from a MicroStrategy. This tells me that these are due for the most big correction that you could ever possibly have. And by the way, I mean, we know from MicroStrategy's CEO directly that they're not really concerned with the price of MicroStrategy. And so now you have people who are very bullish on MicroStrategy, but meanwhile they're diluting it. They're going to sell shares in the open market. Even if they're not going to, unless it's a 2.5 NAV, it doesn't matter. There's still a ceiling to this price potential. And also in a bear market, what is the compression going to look like? As the Bitcoin price goes down, the MicroStrategy price comes down. If the MNAV comes down as well, MicroStrategy price is going to come down stronger and harder than Bitcoin. And this is just one company, which holds a ton of Bitcoin. But there's another one, Metaplanet. So this user seems to be all in Metaplanet. And they posted, I've seen multiple posts about potential Metaplanet weakness down to $5.55, which is about another 12% down from when they wrote this post. The posts I share are always from my true investment lens. I know assets, my risk tolerance, my time frame, the positions I choose to own and invest in, and others I merely trade. You always have to do you based on your own personal situation and brokerage philosophy. So you can try to trade this and maybe buy it back at lower levels. You can try to trade this and be wrong and buy it back higher. Or you can be patient and wait for the long play, for this to play out the way that she ultimately thinks it's going to play out, which is much higher. I'm holding, but you do you. And there's definitely a lot of credence to this viewpoint, right? We've talked about this before. Like, if you're investing for the long term, just don't even look at the price. The more you look at the price, the more you're going to get nervous about the price. Long term, yes, all of these assets are probably going to go up. But there is euphoria. And so if you just look at the Metaplanet stock price, I mean, it's going round tripping. It's round tripping. Even though they hold a lot of Bitcoin, and people are like, but Cryptoviser, their stock is going to go below the MNAV, right? The net asset value. I think I have a tweet about that. Yeah, right here. And this is for the Ethereum treasury company. So if you look at like BTCS, their MNAV is 1, meaning their stock price is on par with their holdings. And people are like, oh, well, it shouldn't be that. It should be higher, just like all the other companies. It's like, no, the other companies should be at 1, not above 1. And so if you're looking at this and saying, well, BTCS is too low, that's why I'm going to buy BTCS, you're thinking about investing completely wrong. Here, you should be buying BTCS because it's 1-to-1. These you should not be buying because they're not 1-to-1. And it's the same thing in the Bitcoin space with Metaplanet. And what you can see is, in my view, Metaplanet round tripped. And we're going to see this happening with a lot of different assets. I mean, we just saw it with Solana, up to 200, I don't know why CoinMarketCap does it, $250, and boom, right back down. Right now, maybe we're trending a little bit higher and we're going to be moving back higher up, but are we going to hit these all-time record highs? Or is the cycle just going to be diminishing returns until we actually do hit the bottom? I don't know. We also know Josh Mandel, who's a big MicroStrategy trader. He made about $30 million on the actual MSTR trade earlier in this year, and I think late last year. Well, he's been also trading these Bitcoin treasury companies and some of these debt facilities from MicroStrategy. Well, he just said, I chose to stop out on 50,000 shares of Metaplanet today just so that I could post this announcement. Not going to lie, I could have held out. Wasn't a forced sale, but I know others have been forced to take losses, and I wanted to send a message. I will do what I have to live to trade another day. Anyone can lose money on a trade. I prefer to be buying today at these prices, but we do what we must. The saying, we are so early, cuts both ways. And that hits hard too. Because if you are so early to buying, you could also be so early to selling. And sometimes it's better to sell before the masses realize that we are rotating into a bear market. And so the more I see downvoting of these videos, commenting, oh, Cryptoviser, you don't know what you're talking about. There's no way that we're not at the top. Again, basing it on no data except for hopes and prayers of that we're going to go higher. I have literally laid out multiple signals, multiple indicators of where we are. Solana launching a phone. They did that last cycle, literally at the bottom of the market. They're launching another phone now. We're not at the bottom of the market, but what is that going to say? I mean, Solana went lower after they launched their first phone. And by the way, what does a phone have to do with blockchain? I still can't figure that out. We're also seeing Ethereum outperforming Solana, even though the Solana bulls are saying, no, we're not even at the top. We're seeing diminishing returns in Bitcoin. We're looking at where we are in the psychological chart, and there's people who think that we're not even in the euphoria phase, even though you can clearly see the panic in the market when we come down 5%. I mean, I think that we're going to be coming down a lot further, a lot harder, right? You can stay in a trade and believe in it forever, but at some point, you either are going to take the losses or you're going to cut your losses. I'd rather cut losses before I'm taking losses. Taking losses I consider like almost 100% loss, which a lot of us have done in the previous cycles, right? I've told my viewers, by the end of this cycle, I want to own 0 Bitcoin, 0 Ethereum, 0 ICP, 0 Cardano, 0 Litecoin, 0 Solana, no crypto. I want to start out completely fresh in the bear market. And we may be in the bear market, right? I mean, we don't know exactly what's going to occur, but I think that we have a lot lower to go before we go higher. And this is going to take out the Bitcoin treasury companies, the Ethereum treasury companies, all these bulls that can't see where we are in the cycle. All of these premiums to the MNAV for all of these different Bitcoin and Ethereum treasury companies. But that's going to set us up. That's going to set us up to have money on the side to buy back in the market. Because all the indicators that we are seeing around that I've been posting about for literally months here, they are now showing themselves to the market. All these risks, all these indicators are now coming to the top. Now other YouTubers and influencers, they're trying to say, oh no, well, we have an extended market. Don't worry about it. Basically, I mean, you could literally say like the whole future of the markets is just, we're never gonna have a bear market because generally speaking, we're always gonna go up forever. But here's the deal. That's not how markets work. And as bullish as you are, there's somebody counter trading you. And the further you go into the bull market, the more counter traders there are. And so once you get to the euphoric phase, the bulls think that nothing can take it down. Oh, there's no way that MicroStrategy MNAV is going to go lower because now Michael Saylor said he's not going to sell shares on the open market. So we are in the clear. Meanwhile, there's no conversation about selling unlimited number of these debt facilities, which is basically debt on MicroStrategy shareholders. And by the way, they're also going to be continuing to sell shares on the open market, whether they do it above 2.5 MNAV or below it, because they have 10 billion shares, something like that, that they can issue into the market. And right now in MicroStrategy, I think there's less than 1 billion shares. So there's literally unlimited number of shares that they can flood the market with, dilute your shares. But the MicroStrategy bulls, they're like, no, Cryptoviser, there's no way. Cryptoviser, Michael Saylor said he's not going to sell above 2.5 MNAV. And it's like, well, he already did, right? Last month, the 1 month before he announced that, he sold like $2 billion worth of their own shares on the market. And so where's all that liquidity coming from? And is it going to continue forever? This idea that this flywheel will never have a bear market, I mean, it's mind-boggling that there are people in this market that cannot see this. Literally, I mean, if you just take a few hours and just go watch my videos at 2x speed, the ones that just say top, market top, right? Look at the ones with low views because people don't want to hear that we're at the top of the market. The same way in a bear market, they don't want to hear that we're at the bottom of the market. And, here's the deal, right? Trump sold the top. We covered that in a video. 50,000 drop will happen. And so I am de-risking. I am completely de-risking because when you see users like Arthur Hayes not even denying that he's selling his crypto, you see the president, World Liberty Finance, selling their crypto. When you see whales selling 80,000 Bitcoin and the market participants saying, oh, MicroStrategy got that. Just like it's a given that we will never hit a bear market. This is euphoric. This is peak euphoria. And so where are we in this cycle? We are at the top. And personally, I think we're already past the euphoria phase. I think we're already in complacency. And the only way that you can see truly where we are in the cycle is to invest non-emotionally and invest money that you can afford to lose. Because the people who can't afford to lose it, they're investing in MicroStrategy and Metaplanet and cannot imagine the price going down. So that's where we are at in the cycle, right? And the further we've gone over the last 3 months, nothing of my thesis has changed. I've gotten more bearish on the market, not long term, short term, 1 year. And I think, and I've showed you, I mean, part of the way that we were able to identify the top of the market in the previous cycle and then the bottom of the market. Top of the market, we're not going to necessarily talk about. Bottom of the market, the FTX collapse. We were able to call based on many different factors, but basically the 1 year chart. Because based on previous cycles, it's 1 year from the top of the market to the bottom of the market, almost to the day. I don't know why, but it works out that way almost every single cycle. And so there is some credibility to that thesis that if we were higher last year on a specific date, then we're probably going to either be higher on that date or lower, depending on where the market is. As much as I would like to believe that the end of 2025 is going to be the Pico top of the market, based on my analysis and based on the Bitcoin halving tracker, based on the psychological chart of the market, based on the slowing down of purchases from MicroStrategy, you can say that they're not slowing down, but they are. They are definitely slowing down. And during those periods of slowdown, this could indicate not greatness for the market. And so if we look at last year, in September, this is when, just again on the yearly chart, when MicroStrategy bottomed. And so if this year, this is the top, and you invert this chart, right? Put this chart upside down. Effectively, we're going from September being a high to November being a low. And look at this drop. That would be a major drop. And again, hold on. All right, so I inverted the chart to show you exactly what I'm saying. So if we invert the chart, right, and the 1 year theory is accurate, we are going into September, we're going to stay kind of sideways trading, and then after September, straight down. And the thing is, I believe that we are going to have a downtrend before we can recover, okay, before we can go back higher. Because we haven't had a downtrend. I mean, pretty much, look at this 1 year chart. In 1 year, there's been basically no corrections. We've had small corrections here, 40% correction. I mean, that's a pretty big correction. But these were also from the top. 2 40% corrections, it looks like, and a few 30% corrections in the last year. But then again, went straight back up. And so we have to really consider whether this inverse theory is accurate. And if it is, oh boy, guys, oh boy, this is not going to look good. This is an 80% drop, right? About an 80% drop. And the more people who say this is not going to happen without providing any data or, bullet points as to why we're not going lower. MicroStrategy is the key. I really do believe this for this cycle. I think that MicroStrategy is the indicator of where the market's going to go. I'm not saying that MicroStrategy is going to fail or they're going to go bankrupt or anything like that. I do think that MicroStrategy is too big to fail at this point. But I would, it doesn't mean the stock price is not going to drop substantially. And so this is kind of the chart that I'm following right now, because if this occurs, Bitcoin is going to have a major drop. All these Bitcoin treasury companies, major drop. Even Ethereum potentially. Now maybe we'll see the reversal in the Ethereum, but generally speaking, when you see drops like this, these are going to be macro drops, right? When Bitcoin dropped at the FTX collapse, everything fell. I mean, Solana went down to $8 from $250 high down to $8. But again, that will be an indicator of time to buy when we do hit that bottom, because eventually it's going to reverse, whether we have Congress intervening, the president intervening, some other macro factors intervene. Somebody's going to intervene so the market stops dropping, right? And hopefully it's going to be the Federal Reserve. And again, this is kind of in the timeline of where the Federal Reserve would potentially want to cut in November. Because remember, at the top of the market in 2021, it was in November, and that's when they said they're going to start raising rates, and the market started to fall. Most people think that if the Federal Reserve says they're going to lower rates, that the market's going to pump. But that's not actually the truth. If you look at the beginning of 2020, before they shut down the global economy, the Federal Reserve did an emergency rate cut in the beginning of March. And what happened in the 2 weeks after that? The market went down even further, and then they shut everything down. Now, people are going to say, well, it's because of the pandemic situation. I get it, but the timing is kind of odd, right? And so this is potentially what's going to happen as well. Maybe in September, the Federal Reserve will cut rates. Maybe they won't cut rates, and that will drop the market. I don't know. But this is something to look at, right? Because last year we went from $100 to $500. We did a 5x in 1 month, 2 months. Imagine the reversal of that. 5x and a reversal is 80% drop or something like that. And so 80% drop from where, like the stock price, right? We're at 380 minus 80%, let's say. That's putting MicroStrategy at a $76 price. Now, 80% drop from $125,000 Bitcoin minus 80% would be $25,000. Now, a lot of people think that this is not possible. It's not going to happen. But again, if we go back to the cycles, right? Bitcoin in the previous cycle topped out at $70,000. But along the way, hold on, I'm trying to pull up. Yeah. So Bitcoin went up to 70,000 in the previous cycle. But after that, it went down to 16,000. $16,000. This was lower than the previous cycle's high. The previous cycle's high was $20,000 in 2018, 2017, something like that. So we went all-time record high to below the previous cycle's high. And so the previous cycle's high now is about $70,000. That was 2021 cycle top, about $70,000. And so if we go below 70,000, could we get to 25,000? It's possible. But even if we don't, let's say we just go down to 70,000, right, which is about a 30 to 40% drop from where we are. MicroStrategy can drop just that amount, but it can also drop more because of the MNAV, because the price of the stock is valued 1.68 times. So, I mean, let's do the math on that. I don't even know how to do the math on this, to be honest. 378 divided by 1.68, 225. This is where the price should be. So 225 times 1.68. Yeah, that's correct. So the price right now should be $225, right? So to get to $75, we would have to basically divide it by 3. So we'd have to have about a 60% drop. $225 divided by 3, $75. So we're only talking about a 60% drop in the Bitcoin price, and MicroStrategy getting to a 1 MNAV, and we're at a $75 price for MicroStrategy. A lot of people are like, no way. There's no possible way that's going to occur. Maybe not. Maybe not, but if we take $125,000, we subtract 60%, that brings us to $50,000. That's within that margin of error under the $70,000 price in the bear market. And so again, I'm not saying that we're going to stay there or go lower than that. I'm just trying to put the numbers into context for you as the viewer. This price is supposed to be $225 right now based on the underlying Bitcoin, but it's actually probably even lower than that because of all these debt facilities involved. So I don't know how people think that we're going to get to $1,000 MicroStrategy. And who's buying MicroStrategy at these elevated prices? Why are you paying $1.68 for only $1 of exposure to Bitcoin when you could just buy the Bitcoin directly? Nobody can answer this because it's not logical. That's how you know we are in euphoria. When everybody thinks that they're the genius. But now we're starting to see the cracks, right? The bulls are getting stopped out, right? A lot of people would say, how would you dare get stopped out on 50,000 shares of MetaPlanet? Well, to me, number one, it's risk management, but it's also they know the market is rotating. It should be very clear. Just look at the MetaPlanet price chart. I mean, how can you look at this and say, oh no, Cryptoviser, this is bullish. We are going to $100. This is the most bearish chart I've seen so far in this video. But everybody's bullish. Everybody thinks that we're not in euphoria. Everybody's saying we're not in the top of the market. But meanwhile, all of these overvalued stocks are still highly overvalued. And for that, I sold my crypto. Not everything. We're not going to talk about exactly what was sold, what I still hold, and all of that, because it doesn't matter. I'm de-risking from this euphoric top market. Some positions are going to be losses forever. Some are gains forever. But they're never going to be gains unless you lock it in. And one thing that I've learned through doing these videos on this channel since 2018 is that as many times as people will say we're never going to go below $100,000 again, we will. So there should be no rush to sell or to buy. Going back to Josh Mandel's post here, we are so early can cut both ways. Maybe we're early on selling, maybe we're early on buying. But either way, we're going to hit those numbers again. And even if we don't, why does it matter, right? The bulls in Bitcoin, they will shame you for selling your Bitcoin. But meanwhile, nobody's saying, right, well, if the price is going to go up forever, it doesn't matter where you buy because you're still going to be in the gains, right? So it doesn't matter if I'm buying Bitcoin at $250,000, right? Does it? It shouldn't. Because if the bulls are what they're saying is accurate, then we're never going to have a bear market again. We're going to keep going up. Companies are going to keep buying unlimited amounts of Bitcoin. Well, if that's true, it shouldn't matter whether I'm buying it at 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, because profit is profit. And if you can't see that and you can't invest with that in mind, then maybe you should probably not be investing at all. But anyway, let me know your guys' thoughts on this video. Are we in a bear market? Are we rotating into a bear market? Or do we have much more to go? And also let me know if you agree with my ongoing thesis that we are going to be rotating into a bear market. I mean, we are, I think, already there. And the higher we go, the closer we are. Same thing I said in the last previous cycle. But again, everything that I've laid out over the past few months has been occurring. Every bearish sentiment and indicator that I've covered has gotten more bearish. Every bullish indicator that I've covered over the last few months has gotten less bullish. And so again, if you watch my videos, you'll know. If you're basing it off of the title, you're not going to make it. You're just not going to make it, right? You have to actually listen to the videos. Watch at 2 times speed if you need to. And I'm not saying every single video, but if you watch a few times a week, you have a pretty good understanding of my investment strategy and thesis of the markets. And again, my long-term viewers, they can comment down below. We were very accurate with a lot of our calls and a lot of our indicators that we identify to tell us whether we're going into a bull market or into a bear market. And with that, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to give the video an absolutely free thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. That way you never miss one of our new videos. And let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Other than that, invest responsibly, do your own research, and crypto on.